Content warning. This episode contains discussion of rape, murder, and child abuse.
The surprising thing is that almost everyone seemed to think Ginger Taylor was a pretty good mother to her boys, Jerry and Glenn. The social workers on the case commented more than once about how she had real concern for them and their welfare.
The father of the boys, her ex-husband Jerry Johnson, also praised her, writing in letters to the state that she was a wonderful mother to the boys and loved them above everything else. She was a very dedicated mother, and the boys came first with her. This makes it difficult to understand what happened. After she and Jerry Johnson divorced, Ginger, the daughter of an abusive father, married an abusive man. Her dad, Sherman McCrary, and her new husband, Carl Taylor, went on a multi-state crime spree of robbery, rape, and murder. Ginger let them bring her and her boys along for the ride.
We've told that story in the last few weeks on this program, and you can also hear about it on the new Wondery podcast, Families Who Kill, the Donut Shop Murders. Even after it was all over, Jerry Johnson still tried to make excuses for the horror and dangers she had exposed her children to. It wasn't entirely her fault, he wrote to the state. She just had the misfortune of being the daughter of a bunch of kooks and marrying another kook.
After she was arrested for her role in the crimes, her parental rights were terminated, and her boys were sent into foster care. A few years later, Ginger reached out to the welfare department and asked to see her boys. The caseworker would later describe the encounter.
Mrs. Taylor sounded very close to tears when she talked about Jerry and Glenn. She felt that she needed to see them to know they were all right. She understood they were well taken care of, but she stated that it was just not the same thing as seeing them and seeing that they were healthy and happy. She felt it necessary to convince me that she did love her children and was concerned about their welfare.
The caseworker reminded her that her parental rights had been stripped from her, and so she could not be allowed to see her sons. And Ginger was also given a bit of news. Her boys would soon be leaving foster care to be formally adopted by a new family. Ginger got the hint. She did not contact the welfare department again.
She would end up seeing her boys again. Years later, as an adult, her son Jerry would track her down. We'll have the story of their reunion and much more just ahead. My name is Anya Kane.
And I'm Kevin Greenlee.
And this is The Murder Sheet, a weekly true crime podcast.
Anya and I connected over the Burger Chef murders, a 1978 unsolved case involving the killings of 4 young restaurant employees.
Now we're looking to track restaurant homicides. To help us understand the patterns of these crimes, we created a spreadsheet of nearly 1,000 eatery-related killings, the Murder Sheet. We'll be drawing on that data throughout Season 1 to give you a deep dive into undercovered crimes.
We're the Murder Sheet, and this is the Donut Shop Killers, the Fallout.
When Jerry and his brother were placed in foster care, the state did nothing to help them deal with the trauma of the horrors they had witnessed.
You know, we went through all that without no counseling or nothing. And just you swallow it and deal with it best you can. But hell, back then there weren't no such thing. If it was, it's scattered about. Hell, we only saw the social worker, once a month, once every 2 months. I really don't know exactly how, but, she didn't really, pry into it. Plus, it's like a hit and miss. Some days when they visit, go, oh, well, Jerry's doing this, Jerry's doing that. And then, I'm not doing nothing. But then the next time they thought, well, we done had to move him again because I was a fighter. I've always been a fighter. Just, I think, because, when you get put in foster homes and if the people had kids, they'd make fun of you and just say, your mama didn't like you. Well, you know how you get them shut up? You whoop their ass, and they don't talk about that shit no more. And I think that's how I dealt with it. It wasn't that I was mean, I was just scared, and that's how you react. Any animal, when they're scared, and they're going to come out vicious.
What Jerry needed was a loving, permanent home he could share with his brother Glenn. And, almost by a miracle, he got one. A middle-aged couple named Albert and Pauline Nations expressed interest in adopting a daughter.
And apparently somebody knows that the social workers, they weren't available, and she was so, hey, but I do have these two boys. I want to say we visited once or twice for the weekend and maybe a week before we actually moved in.
We asked Jerry what the Nations were like.
Strict Bible-fearing people. God-fearing. They preached the word, but they lived the word, and they weren't hypocrites.
Jerry and his brother Glenn loved their new life.
And we was in hog heaven. We was tickled. Oh, my goodness, because they had a couple of little horses and stuff like that. We thought, oh, hey, we own a farm now. We was very tickled.
But the good times did not last long.
And then, we got adopted, and it was less than a year whenever our adopted mom died. So we didn't get to really know her. So we're back at step one, no mama, nothing like that. And we were so happy we got adopted and so happy we got adopted together. And then she come down with cancer. And less than a year later, she's dead. Well, I didn't know it at the time. My dad had never told me. They come back to get us. And he told them no. And he wound up raising us 5 years by himself before he got remarried. And that's commendable on his part because he never once made us feel like a burden. It was the kids. And hell, he had 5 kids before he adopted us. 3 of them was out. 1 of them was in college. And 1 of them was still living there at the house. And Judy. And she and I, through the years, we became real close. But then she wound up dying at 42 of a heart attack. And, you just get this feeling, hell, everybody I get close to, boom, they're gone. So then, that's why I think, it may sound weird, I don't know, but that's why I think a lot of my relationships don't work because of that character defect of self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm thinking it's going to happen, so screw it. I just go ahead and make it happen. Because I'll do my whole life. Anybody I ever get close to, boom, they're gone. So when I was 21 years old, my best friend died. Young, he was a hemophiliac, and he wound up getting a bad transfusion, and he died of AIDS. So I sat there and watched him deteriorate for about 6 months before he finally just, they had to sedate him and let him die. I don't know, you wonder at times, but I do believe that God will never put anything on me I cannot handle. But he sure does put me right there on the line at times. But, I know a lot of it was brought on from my alcohol and drug abuse, too. I'm not saying I was no angel, and I'm just as much at fault for dealing with it like I did. But the hell, I didn't know how to deal with it. So, because I assure you, my daddy, he did not drink, did not smoke, did not cuss, none of that. So I didn't pick all that up from him. He was a very good example. But, he was big on manners and big on the Bible, and we went to church every time the doors was open. He taught Sunday school, led singing, very hardcore religion. And I think, in my personal opinion, it took somebody strong like that to be able to deal with me. My mind was just jacked up.
Of course, one of the reasons why young Jerry's mind was in such a state was because he was haunted by the memory of what he had seen when he had been on the road with Carl and Ginger Taylor and Sherman McCrary.
I tried talking about it back then, but nobody believed me, because I understand, that's a hellacious story coming from an 8-year-old. And I understand why they didn't believe me, but whenever they don't believe me, who the hell do you talk to about it? You don't bottle that shit up inside.
Were you telling them things you remembered about the crimes?
Yes. That's what I told them. I said, my parents robbed places and stuff like that, and they were mean to people, killed people, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I realize. Now, I understand, because we got adopted into a very Christian family. And, they were never exposed to that kind of environment shit. So, I understand the fact that when you got an 8-year-old telling them this outlandish story, I see their point of view about not believing me. But then again, I think the state is at fault for not telling these people what we went through. Because me and my brother both had night terrors up into our teens. And that was dealing with all that shit was hard to deal with. I think that's where the alcohol and drug abuse came in, because if we can't deal with it, let's just cover it up. Once I tried it and seen the relief, that the alcohol is the release, get my mind on somewhere else that was. And then, with the alcohol, we used to like to get drunk and go fight. We'd go to the bars, find some big guy, get in a fight with him, just to, I don't know. I guess that's just part of being alcohol.
Sometimes, Jerry admits, he took things too far.
There's times I took it to extremes. Like one time I got in a fight with these two cops. And I'm not a big guy. I'm 5'10". Back then I was probably 160, 170 pounds. But I wore both their butts out bad. If I hadn't had a good lawyer, I'd been to the penitentiary a lot sooner. My biggest thing, especially when I was in prison, these big guys that would try to bully me, I used to love punking them out in front of everybody. I'd beat them damn near unconscious. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a couple times we got in a big old bar fight there in Longview one time, and I lost. I was trying to fight these 3 dudes, and I woke up in ICU. Didn't know how I got there.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, that sucked. I broke some ribs that they stomped the shit out of me. You talking about hating to sneeze? Oh my God! Broke ribs fell on you quick.
Getting into fights wasn't Jerry's only risky activity. He also rode bulls.
I rode them bulls for 11 years.
Wow.
I love that. In fact, I've got on a little old steer about 5 years ago just for shits and giggles, and got my little old ass drove real quick.
To us, Jerry seemed very different from the man he said he used to be. We wondered what was behind the change.
What did make you turn your life around? Because you said at one point you were kind of wild, and you don't seem wild now. So how did you change?
I'll be honest with you, that little 5 years I did in prison, that was a good eye-opener. It showed me how easily your freedom can be taken away from you. And granted, the shit I was accused of, I did. So it ain't like, I was framed. No, I did it. There was I got sent up for I got involved in meth. And I can give you my prison number, all that. You can look into all that, but What they got me for was possession of a list one chemical with the intent to manufacture as a meth cook. And not gonna lie, meth was about the only drug that got that shit out of my head. But it was like alcohol. It was just a temporary fix to a permanent problem. So, then I think once I went to prison and got all that, I was actually able to sit down and deal with it sober. That's what really helped me settle down and realize, I don't think it was during the wild days. I didn't want to like kill myself or anything like that, but I was tired of living, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah. Because it's a turmoil and that going through life feeling like you're a burden on people. People don't want you and stuff like that. I think that had a big impact on my relationships, stuff like that. I'm not good at relationships, and about the only good relationship I've been able to maintain and hold is with my brother and my son. Other than that, like wives, I've had a few wives, a few live-ins. I think that has a lot to do with it. Maybe when I've thought about doing the counseling thing and stuff like that, but I just never follow through with it. That's.
You think it would help?
I understand it. Yeah, I know it would. But I know that I did NA for a couple of years back in 97, 98, something like that. And I got up and I was telling part of the story. I hadn't found everything out, but I was telling one of my stories at one of the big meetings that we had at this little, it was a youth center rehab for kids 16 and under, I think it was. And I got up there and told my story and stuff, and this little 13-year-old black girl come up to me. She said, "Mr. Nation, thank you for your story." She said, my mama and daddy was mean like that. She said, "My mama's the one that got me on crack and started selling me." This is a 13-year-old girl. And I'm sitting there thinking, how in the hell did you and I connect through that? Which I'm glad. But she and I sat and talked for probably 30, 45 minutes till, they had to go back in their dorms or whatever. But, I thought a lot of times, maybe that might be why I went through there, to be able to get out and maybe advocate for when you take a child out of a home, you've got to get them counseling. That should be a law.
Yes. I mean,
or at least pick their brain a little bit.
In picking his own brain, Jerry realized that if he was ever to find lasting peace, he would need to come to terms with his own past. That would involve not just researching his biological family, but ultimately reuniting with them.
For Jerry and his brother Glenn, the process would begin with a visit to the man who had adopted them so many years before.
But Glenn and I went to Daddy first and asked him, hey, we're thinking about finding our biological people. Do you have a problem with it? If you do, please tell me and we'll drop it right here. Out of respect for him. And he said, no, I don't have a problem with it, and I'll help you any way I can. He said, but I don't know a whole lot.
Even with his adoptive father's support, the process would be long.
It's like whenever I started looking, we had to file for the adoption papers, and Texas is closed adoption, so we had to wait. When I filed for them, I had to wait like a calendar year, and I done forgot about them. And they showed up that day, and I was like, ooh, crap. It's like, that deja vu shit. It just made me say, I wound up quitting the job down there and went back to Texas. It's like everything just snowballed. It just started happening. Finally, I had to back off a little bit because I couldn't handle it. I was drinking every day trying to deal with that stuff. And it wasn't doing them, just making me an old asshole.
Jerry also discovered that a book had been written about his family's case, Death Roads, the story of the donut shop killers by Orville Traynor.
And I went down to the library, and just so happened that library had a copy of the book. I brought it home and read it, and the book sucks. It's really written terrible, but I read it and got the gist of it. And I had to go in there, and as I started reading it and stuff started coming back and stuff, I had to go in there and throw up. It was too much to handle at one time because I'd had it blocked out so long.
As painful as it was, having the book and the adoption records did give Jerry a chance to do something he must have dreamed of for a very long time.
I went around to a few of the people that told me I'd lie when I was a kid, and I showed the book and my papers down and said, I told you so. And all I got was, I'm so sorry. I understand why you didn't believe me, but I told you.
Now it was time to take the next step, to track down his biological parents. He started searching for his father first.
You know, my biological dad is Jerry Johnson. And I knew he was from around the Dallas area, so I went looking for him first, but I didn't realize how common the name Jerry Johnson is. And I told the phone company what I was doing, and they sent me 6 of them computer pages full of Jerry Johnsons and Jerry L. Johnsons in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So, I mean, you're looking at least 1,000 names. I was like thinking, holy shit. So I gave up on that idea.
He had a bit more luck when it came time to look for his mother, Ginger. He located a woman in Dallas who had a family name he recognized. He reached out to her.
And it just so happened to be Ginger's cousin. And she said, oh my goodness, yada, yada, yada. And she gave me Ginger's phone number and address and stuff. And I waited a couple days because, hell, I found them like quick. From the time I got my records, I'd say maybe 2 to 3 weeks later, I'd found her. And I called her up and, hey, is this Ginger? She said, yeah. I said, on July 22nd of 67, did you have a little boy named Jerry? She said, yes, I did. I said, well, you talking to him? And you could hear her crying in the background and stuff, and we really didn't get to talk a whole lot right then because she's crying and shit. And, then I want to say it was a month or two later.
What did it feel like for you to be talking to her on the phone and hearing her voice after all those years?
It was weird. In some ways, it was unsettling. But then in some ways, it's like, hell, I've been wondering about this stuff for years, and it was like very unrealistic because, everything just happened to coming together, and all that. But it's and then, when I was trying to talk to her, I just kept drawing blanks with her. I kept thinking, I had a 3-year-old at the time, and I kept thinking, and my biggest thing with her is how in the hell could you do that to your kids? Because I got a little boy that I would kill for. Somebody messed with him, but yet you chose to drag your 3 kids around doing this crap when you knew what was going on. Yes, I just can't fathom that.
Did she ever give you any sort of explanation?
Never. In fact, Glenn was living up here in South Carolina. I was in Florida. He flew down there, and we got on a plane and flew to Oklahoma and to meet her and stuff. And Glenn don't remember. He was, maybe not quite 3 when we got took away. He don't remember a whole lot about it, but we was walking down to the airport, and her and Tammy walked by. And I told Glenn, I said, hey, there's your mama right there. Because I remember, it was like she looked the same 25 years later to me. And that's what I done. So there's your mama. And then I hollered her name out, and she turned around and looked at me, and her and Tammy both, oh, little Jerry, oh, my God, Glenn. You know, that was weird. It might be your mama or whatever, or your egg donor. She ain't my mama. She's my egg donor, but you don't know these people from jack shit. You know what I mean? That's, it's definitely different.
Yeah, what was it like to see her again?
I don't know. In a way, it was kind of like you're anxious, finally get to see you, yada, yada. But then in a way, you still got that resentment there. Because you realize my deal is, y'all, sure you went to jail 5 years, big deal. You don't realize the hell that you put me and Glenn through by what the hell you were doing.
Did you ever tell, after you reconnected, did you ever tell Ginger about how you felt?
No, because once we went out, we went and visited and stuff, and everybody was all the way around, so I didn't want to get on her ass or nothing, because, bad as I hate to say, we was raised, Christian family, respect, and I'd be wanting to talk trash to her, but then Daddy would be mad if I talked trash to my woman, mama or not. He just wasn't like that. But then we just never really talked about it. And then I want to say around Christmas time that year, I flew out to California where they're at, and I stayed 9 days, but after the second day, I stayed a couple days at Ginger's house. And finally, it just got to me. I said, look, I'm not staying here no more. I'm either finna fly back to Texas, or I'll go stay with Tammy. Because Tammy stayed there in Ventura, next little town over. So I wound up staying the last week with Tammy, or the last 7 days. And I really didn't say a whole lot to Ginger. Then after that, I just quit having anything to do with her. I know I was raised to forgive, but that's hard. And I know it's probably selfish on my part that I still hold a little resentment. Because I feel, being of the Christian faith, I feel like I should forgive because I've been forgiven, but how do you forgive somebody over that?
She was your mother. She was supposed to protect you.
You're right. That's why I say I got them 2 boys. And them boys bigger than I am now. But to this day, if any one of them mess with them, God help their soul, That's our job as parents, to protect our babies. And she's allowing this kind of stuff to happen. I don't fathom that.
What was Ginger's life like when you met her? Like, where was she living and what was she doing?
She was living in Santa Barbara. She was married, and they lived in a little old, there's a shack-looking thing, like one of them old shotgun houses. I don't know if y'all got them where y'all live at, but around Texas, they had them little row of houses where they basically look like a trailer house, but they're out of wood. They're actually a skinny house. But anyhow, when I went out there to meet him, met her husband, that's cool and all that. But then her cousin comes out in a white beater and got all these prison tattoos all over and stuff. Well, then this other little old skinny, crack-headed looking woman comes walking out behind her, and apparently that's her girlfriend or whatever. I ain't used to this. I was thinking, holy shit, I'm cross country from my people, and I'm into this. I didn't like it, so after the second day, I done, look, I'm not staying here. I either go back to Texas or let me go to Tammy's.
What's her personality like, Ginger's? Like, what is she like? I mean, how does she come across?
She's quiet. I don't know I mean, I've got pictures of where we met her and all that stuff. And I don't know. I want to feel like it was quiet from remorse. But then again, I don't know. I don't know if cause I remember when we was kids, she really didn't say a whole lot. But I see why, because like, oh, beat the shit out of her, and she didn't want to talk. But she was just quiet a few times. I'd look at, I want to say something, but, we got the whole room is filled up with Chelsea, Dan, Tammy, Carlene, everybody. And I just didn't feel comfortable, just blurting, hey, tell me what the hell happened. But I did do this while I was in California. Tammy's husband, he carried me, that Giordano's, where they did the robbery and Carl come out and shot the cop in the head.
Right.
This is crazy shit right here. He carried me to that store, and I tried walking through it, like the book depicts how the crime went down, but it's been changed up a lot. This is what's crazy. Ginger was over the deli in that store.
Oh, my God.
She was the deli manager for that store. Now, what the hell?
That's amazing.
I mean, why would you do that? And then, that's what I thought. I said, that right there, that is not right. That is not right. I don't care what you say. That is not right. And then they carried me up to the house we were living in, which was, 2 or 3 blocks from the store. They carried us up there and said, this is where they came and all that, and this is where they found, the car that got them on the call. And I'm like, oh, wow. Well, that's one. She just, I don't know, it's probably tacky, and I shouldn't say this, but she just freaking out there. I don't know if it's just like mental being born like that, or if she just been beat down through the years. I don't know. But I don't have nothing to do with her no more.
Eventually, Jerry was able to track down and reunite with his biological father, Jerry Johnson.
I'd say I found him maybe 2 months after Ginger or something like that. And I actually stayed in contact with him for a little while, but he kept trying to do this dad stuff, dad this, and I told him, look, my daddy's Albert Nations. And finally he kept doing that crap where I just lost all contact with him.
What was he like otherwise?
He was, he wasn't a dickhead or nothing like that, but he just tried too hard. But he had 2 more girls when he got out of prison. He actually raised them, and I guess, he was tried to be a good father to them. But it was kind of like joking. He was worked in a halfway house for it, like a drug rehab counselor there in Houston. But I don't know, just something about it. I try to trust my gut instincts on stuff like that. He was just trying too hard, call me little Jerry and, love dad and stuff like that. And I don't like that.
I can understand that.
It may be cold on my part, but I'm sorry, I don't like being fake.
Jerry still tries to figure out why all of this happened.
There's some reason why I went through it, and there's some reason why I'm still walking the face of the earth, a free man alive, for some reason.
Sometimes it jacks with my head if I get off too far into it. I may not sleep real good that night or whatever, but it does help being able to get it out.
Maybe one day I'll get to where I can do the counseling and all that stuff, but just can't pull it off right now.
We would like to thank Jerry Nations once again for sharing his remarkable story with us. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Murder Sheet. As always, thanks to Kevin Tyler Greenlee, who composed the music for The Murder Sheet, and who you can find on the web at kevintg.com.
To keep up with the latest on the Murder Sheet, please make sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Murder Sheet, and on Facebook at MSheet Podcast, or by searching Murder Sheet. If you enjoy listening to the Murder Sheet, please leave us a 5-star review to help us gain more exposure. And send tips, suggestions, and feedback to murdersheet@gmail.com. Thanks so much for listening.